So, Pete, at Universal, many people are really curious about this transition, as I said before, about how you would move from a mixing and tracking engineer into mastering. About how many years did you end up mastering at Universal versus mixing and tracking? And in relation to the skill set of audio engineering, was it difficult? Was it hard? Did you have to learn new skills? Is there a similarity in equipment? Can you talk about those kind of parameters in relation to that transition?
Well, I had to reinvent myself, which is how the need for learning the toolbox that is mastering, and it really wasn't. Well, first off, the equipment was totally all familiar to me, except that the workstation that you use in mastering was a little bit different. But basically, as we used to say, when you learned, especially if you were an independent and you had to rove around from studio to studio, you basically learned really quickly. Or if you are on staff at a place that had multiple rooms, you learned essentially that a board is a board is a board. If you had the concept of one vertical channel strip, and the pathway in and out, and all the destination delivery applications that you were going to be using, you were golden. And when I got into mastering, because you're only working with two channels, essentially, although occasionally you'll get stems, which I'll just very quickly say I really don't like getting stems because it gives us the ability to undo your mix. You don't really want to undo your mix. And if you want the ability to, remix in the mastering studio, we're going to have to change the rate structure. And we're no, because I'm definitely not going to do it for a flat fixed fee. It's definitely going to be an hourly, because once you open that door. Anyway, the skill set, it's basically, when I came from all my years of being a recording engineer, that you know what clarity of the voice is. You know what definition on the bass is, so you can hear each individual note. Not like, you get down into this range where it's all murk and undefined, mushy area. So you need to be able to have a few, not only the ability to recognize a problem, but also have an idea of how to solve that problem. And especially with just two tracks, it can be a little challenging because there's always collateral damage. Like if a track comes in and it has, was mixed in a place where they thought they had the right amount of bass, and there's either way too much or way too little, that's the usual thing. But, those are the most egregious and most obvious and most common things we see. Let's say it comes in with too much bass. That's a little easier because you can shave some of that off without screwing up stuff that lives somewhere above it. If it comes in and they thought they had, and it's really thin and kind of harsh sounding, to add bottom, you may end up with, a duddy snare, a cloudy vocal. There are things above it that are going to suffer. Even if you try to do really narrow cues, you'll find that, because you only have a two-channel mix, if you try to, extract one thing versus another, it's a teeter-totter kind of thing.
So it's like the critical listening skill applied to a specific task.
Right. And unfortunately, like back in the day when I was a recording engineer and the players were still there, you could fix things. And similarly, if you were mixing and you had all the elements separate, you could fix balances that were off.
Yeah.
When I get something in mastering and, that's a performance issue, like voice out of tune, or the one that kills me is like if the bass is uniformly sharp or flat or something. It's like it's like impossible to make it sound sweet with the overtones above something that down there the fundamental is off. It really is really tough. Also, you find things like if the vocal is slightly too low or slightly too loud. I mean, sometimes it's a taste thing, like with rock and roll music. It's quite often intentionally the voice is slightly submerged in the track to make you want to, delve, have the music wrap around you to hear every lyric and everything. But you still have to hear every lyric. Sometimes you get stuff where you go, I know you know the words. I don't know the words, and I'm not, able to understand everything. So to get clarity on some things, it's subtractive EQ, say, that may be more so than additive EQ. But the most important thing is knowing what needs fixing and what does not need fixing. And that comes from having a super accurate monitoring environment. And it's imperative for a mastering studio, but it's certainly desirable at every step because you're making decisions. It's not like you're recording a live performance with a stereo microphone and you're done, right? No, you're making critical decisions about balance, about tonality, about, timbre, about, all sorts of stuff. Dynamics, what's appropriate, what's inappropriate. So I was very thrilled. I mean, the one thing that, every studio, I've never worked at a home studio before, but the arguably the best monitoring environment we had was at Universal, where we had the spectacular ZR thing built into the room acoustics. I mean, it wasn't just a supplement to the room acoustics. It was in there from the ground up. I'm not sure how much I need or you need to hear from me about that, but it just suffices to say it was, my room was, what was it, like 20 by 30 by 15 or something, and it really didn't matter where the hell you sat in that big room. It sounded pretty uniform everywhere. So you could always get, you could get clients to participate in a meaningful way. Where I'm at right now, it sounds spectacular where I'm sitting, but nowhere else in the room. So I really don't invite people to come. I mean, you're welcome to come. I'm not going to tell you not to come, but you're not going to know what the fuck it sounds like until you get it home. So why bother?